from the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio. This is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell and I'm back in Melbourne. You'll remember I was in Adelaide last time we spoke, caught up with some family members down there and got a bit of a fishing trip in, I'm pleased to say, down on the Yorke Peninsula, which is about a 3-hour drive from Adelaide. And I've got to thank Vicky, Dave, Jared and Flynn for a wonderful evening and an overnighter, catching some King George whiting. And I even had a little bit of success, which is highly unusual. But yeah, lovely to just get a little bit of outdoors time in between some work assignments.
Ali, I'm very envious. Jim Maxwell in Sydney. I was eating some whiting last week, but I didn't catch it. And it's fairly quiet around town at the moment. They're playing a semi-final of Big Bash as I speak. The boys have gone to India. The girls have gone to South Africa. So we're all sitting back and getting ready for it all to unfold as we go from one event to another. So the excitement continues.
So does it in India. I'm Charu Sharma in Bangalore, once again, home for the All India Radio aspect of Stumped. Well, we've had a fair amount of cricket here in India, and New Zealand going down big time in the ODIs as well as the T20s. But of course, all eyes now on the India-Australia tour, where Australia are somewhat understandably refusing to practice on the normal sort of zonal games. And they say, well, we'll just take care of ourselves till the first test match because we don't know what kind of pitches are going to happen. But it's going to be a great tour, without doubt. It's going to be the big one. And we all do look forward to it. Meanwhile, for me personally, a lot of golf, which is great.
Get that handicap down, Shari. That's what we like to hear. Now, there is a lot of biggies going on at the moment, isn't there? Whether it's men's cricket or women's cricket. And first up on Stump this week, we're going to talk about the fact that the world's best female players in T20 have descended on South Africa because the Women's T20 World Cup starts there next week. Now, you remember back in 2020, Australia came out on top in the last edition of the tournament in front of 86,000 spectators. Yep, a landmark night indeed. And Australia will be looking to defend their title in South Africa. But for one player, being named in the Australian squad represents a real remarkable journey. Now, Kim Garth has previously represented Ireland at 2 World Cups. She made her Ireland debut at just 14 years of age, and she was in fact the youngest player, male or female, to play a T20 international. But in 2020, she quit Ireland and moved to Australia to pursue a dream of playing cricket professionally. And last month, the dream came true when she made her Australia T20 debut against India. And now she's going to the World Cup. And we can speak to Kim now. Kim, it's great to have you on. Just take us back to the year 2020, if you will. And, you know, what must have felt like a pretty big move to upheave your life to the other side of the world, specifically to become a professional cricketer. So how did you make that decision? How big did it feel?
It certainly was a very difficult decision. But having spent a couple of years over in Australia playing grade cricket and then being part of the WBBL as well in kind of little patches here and there, just thought every time I went home to Ireland in the Irish summers and Australian winters, I thought, God, I just want to go back to Australia and live some of the lives of some of those girls who just get to play cricket all the time and do it for a job. I thought about it a little bit. I thought about it a lot. Obviously spoke to my family and kind of thought, well, I'm 20, I think 3 or 4 I was at the time. And, it's going to take me the guts of 3 years to become a local. So it's an now or never kind of thing. Took the plunge and here I am. So, it was certainly a difficult decision, but it's not one that I've looked back on since.
No, so you had to do that qualification period. But was this T20 World Cup sort of always on your radar insofar as, looking to get into the Australian team?
Not really, to be honest. I honestly didn't think about Australian selection really until it got quite close, and I knew I qualified in September because it had been 3 years since I last played for Ireland and got my residency, and it was only then I kind of started to get included on a few emails on extended squads and that kind of stuff, and I thought, well, actually, you know what, maybe I'm not as far off as I initially thought. And then towards the end of that BBL, I got the call to say I'd be going to India, which was such a nice surprise. And obviously then once you're in the squad, you do start thinking about a potential World Cup a little bit more. And lucky to keep my place in what's a very strong side. So very excited to be here.
Hi, Kim. It's Jim Maxwell here in Sydney. Nice to be chatting with you. And you've had a bit of experience with these World Cups, 2 of them, and you bowled. You got Meg Lanning out for 8 in that last World Cup. Also top scored for Ireland with 27. So how do you reflect on that experience now that you're playing with the Aussies?
It's a funny one, really, isn't it? I had a lot of fun with Ireland in those World Cups, and World Cups are the peak, and for Ireland, who maybe don't play against the top sides as much, to be able to play in those World Cups and test yourselves against the best sides in the world was always a really exciting time. And I remember knocking Meg's off stump back, which I'll have to remind her of now coming up to selection. But I had obviously a really enjoyable time with Ireland, and slightly different situation now where I'm in the squad.
Slightly different dressing room now. How do you feel with the group of players you're alongside who have got such a wealth of experience and record in the game? And Lanning, Perry, Megan Schutt, they're all there in the room with a lot of other famous players, you'd have to say. Is it overawing?
It is and isn't, I guess. I guess I do have to pinch myself every now and again when I'm sitting in the dugout, just chatting along with the girls, watching the game. It's an incredible team to be part of. It's really, really cool. But at the same time, I spend a lot of time playing against these girls, and I certainly don't feel out of my depth in the squad, which is a nice way to feel. But I suppose it's just a bit of a different feeling sitting in the dugout, thinking no matter what situation we get ourselves in, you kind of look around, you just have world-class players everywhere, the cream of the crop. So it's a really, really cool team to be part of.
You did play for Ireland at the biggest stage, the World Cup. And will that experience of playing 2 World Cups for Ireland, of course, a different team, stand you in good stead in your new setup in Australia?
I think so. Look, World Cups are obviously the tournament you want to play in, and they're really cool to be part of, and have all the best players in one spot. Playing against each other is really cool. But I think the last few years, as I said, in domestic cricket, and especially the Big Bash, when you've got the best players in the world and you play against them for 2 months solid, and you play a lot of cricket against them, I think that's probably what will hold me in the best stead if and hopefully when I get a chance out there.
And there's been plenty of male Irish cricketers who made a move across to England to qualify to then earn international honours with England. Owen Morgan, of course, being the most high profile of those. Did you look to them, for sort of any inspiration, that sort of sense of, this has happened before, it can happen, in the women's game as well? I can also seek, my own fortune in a professional game.
Yeah, I suppose you do look at it a little bit, and Ed Joyce as well, who was the Irish coach at the time when I left, obviously played for England. So you look at it. I did look at it a little bit, but not too much in depth. I guess the situations were quite different in that. With the boys going to play in the county championship and that kind of thing, and so similar situations, but also a lot of differences as well. But it was. I suppose it was cool to see that people had done it in the past. And then as well with the likes of Kirsty Gordon used to play for Scotland, obviously then played for England. And I think Lee Casperk did it as well. Used to play for Scotland, then play for New Zealand. So it had been done before. But as I said, I was just kind of going over to play professionally and be part of the domestic setup over in Australia.
And Kim, we mentioned that you were just 14 when you made your debut for Ireland. What do you remember of that match, of being so young? What was it like?
Yeah, I think it was, I was completely kind of ignorant, I guess, in what was actually happening. I don't think I was overly nervous. I was just going along with the flow, whereas things have changed now. I'm probably the most nervous cricketer going around. I remember, I think I batted 7, I didn't bowl, but I obviously absolutely loved it. It was against New Zealand, I think. Over in England. So, times have certainly changed a bit. It feels like a lifetime ago, but it was just a young young girl just living the dream, I suppose.
Well, Kim, we wish you best of luck at the World Cup. Enjoy it. And Australia defending champions. So there's a lot for them to be chasing out there. Enjoy it, won't you? And thanks so much for being on Stumped.
No worries, thanks for having me.
Next on Stumped, we all remember India's men winning the inaugural T20 World Cup in 2007 in South Africa, just prior to the launch of the IPL. Well, it seems history repeated itself with the first World Trophy for India on the women's side. It was the inaugural Women's Under-19 T20 World Cup held in South Africa and won by India in what has to be seen as a landmark moment in the history of the women's game in the country. They beat England by 7 wickets in the final. And it did seem like perfect timing, just as the Women's Premier League, the women's version of the IPL, is getting ready for launch next month. And a competition that is already raking in the dollars commercially through TV rights and team ownerships. And now BCCI looking for a title sponsor. Even the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, commented on the Under-19's feat. He called their victory an inspiring moment for the country. And legendary cricketer Sachin Tendulkar had his say as well. He was on social media saying the win would, quotes, inspire a whole generation to take up sports. Now, Charu, in a country where women's cricket hasn't always had the same recognition, or hasn't had the same recognition as the men's game, how widespread has the reaction been?
Well, it's been fabulous, I must admit. And congratulations to all the under-19 girls and all the hard work put in. It's just brilliant that they actually won the first edition. So whatever happens hereafter in the under-19 World Cup, the Indian women will remain the first ever winners, which is quite an accolade and brilliant for these young girls. And a lot of them are actually pretty young, not close to 19. There are some of them are 16, 15 even. So yeah, fabulous achievement. I think there was a lot of cricket going on. So the timing, media-wise, wasn't fabulous because I think it was a big weekend, so many other major sporting events going on. But luckily, that ripple effect is still on. And just a short while back in the final T20, India played against New Zealand at the massive Narendra Modi Ahmedabad Stadium. They were felicitated. Sachin Tendulkar was there, and a big check was handed out of, if I can convert it into pounds, almost £500,000 to the ladies. So that's all very good news. And of course, it'll inspire hundreds and thousands of youngsters to take to the game, and so much more that I'd love to say about this. And as you said, coming in just before the imminent WPL, that will inspire even more for sure. Well, what happened to Australia, though?
What did happen to Australia, Jim? So, Charu, was that you mentioned when they were felicitated? Was that the lap of honour? They were in like gold, glittery cars, weren't they? Almost like a little train around the ground. I loved it. Correct.
And it was a wonderful occasion too, because I mean, the ground, it's a massive stadium. I've been there some time back because of some other national games that were held there. It's just awe-inspiring, that stadium. Fabulous, the buzz, the energy. And for these youngsters to be in there, of course, they must already be veterans now if they can handle that atmosphere. But yeah, it was a wonderful occasion. And you're right, I'm glad you caught it. But back to the best team in the world. So at the under-19 level, what's going on?
Well, it was England who made the final, Jim, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, by a squeaky margin, but they did well, and well done to them for getting there. But India were dominant, weren't they, in that final? Extraordinarily low-scoring games too, those last couple. Whether that's a comment on the quality of the batting or the better bowling, I'm not so sure. But that was a bit of a surprise that they couldn't score more runs in those games.
And that was from the English team. Sorry. So obviously, women's cricket is in very good health in the UK. And I wonder what kind of news the loss in the final made, because it was, as Jim said, a very low-scoring kind of funny kind of game where there didn't seem to be any real test. But overall, women's cricket in England, I'm sure, is not reflective of the fact that it went down so quickly and badly in the final.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent, and that is becoming as a result of the professional setup they've got regionally now, and even very young players getting an opportunity via the 100 to play on those big stages in front of big crowds. And I think, Jim, that's probably also where historically the Women's Big Bash, because it got in so early, has really prepped and prepared Australia's players for those steps up the ranks, right the way top, to the top of the senior level. And you feel now that you've got 3 countries, with India now joining in with the Women's Premier League, who can all be giants on the stage in terms of the depth. And it was always the depth, wasn't it, Charu, that India were worried about when it came to launching a T20 league. Did they have the depth to sustain? I mean, they're not sustaining quite as many teams as the men's yet, but they've certainly got enough. And the under-19s performance has really, I feel, watching from slightly afar, that it's really given the country an enormous lift, and they've rightly been very, very proud of their team. They've got profile that perhaps other teams wouldn't have done.
Well, you make a very good point, Alison, because yes, all of us were also, and I'm equally guilty of mentioning the fact that maybe the depth wasn't quite there in Indian women's cricket, and therefore the Women's Premier League just had to wait it out and had to happen organically. Well, in that respect, the under-19 win couldn't have come at a better time, because now suddenly the nation believes that there are many other young ladies who can actually play to a pretty good standard. May not be quite as good as the top 15, 20 players in the country, but that's the whole point of getting the Women's Premier League going, that many of these other ladies will now start believing themselves. And, well, the two of them who, of course, play for the national team anyway, Shefali, who's the captain of the under-19 team, as well as Richa Ghosh, who's now more or less the permanent wicket keeper. So I think there's this osmosis now of belief that the senior players, along with the junior lot, are almost just as good. So the depth is now beginning to show through.
Jim, from the Australian side of things, I mean, I didn't sort of sense that it got a lot of traction or attention, the fact that the Aussie women weren't in the final of the under-19s. I mean, Australia pump up winners. They don't like to highlight it so much when they're not doing so well. Yeah,
they were in the shadow, obviously, of the national team. But yeah, there wasn't much publicity. You're quite right. Perhaps there would have been more had they got to the final. But perhaps it was the time factor. Most of the games were played in the middle of the night in Australia, weren't they? So, and maybe that was contributing. But there's no doubt that the profile with women's cricket's all over the Australian team, and that's fair enough. They are very, very good. I dared to suggest at the Border Medal the other night when I was sitting next to Steph Beltrami from Cricket Australia. I said, this Australian women's team is the best sports team in the world, and if they don't win the Laureus Award this year for being that, I'll be very surprised.
Well, it's been on the cards for a while. It hasn't happened yet, has it? But you're right. They've got to be right up there in contention for that and have some global recognition, where maybe cricket suffers a little bit because it's not maybe the global sport truly that we all like to think it is. But yeah, I think as far as the India's victory in the under-19s goes, it could not have come at a better time for India with the launch of the IPL. It is certainly just going to ramp up interest ahead of that Women's Premier League. It's a big one. Well, that was all we've got time for on this week's Stumped. So I'll say thanks to Jim Maxwell and Charu Sharma, and to all of you. And we'll speak to you again next week. Bye for now.
From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.